on Monday, December 2nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. Roll call.
Bauer,
Here.
Blackwell,
Present.
Campbell,
Present.
Collins,
Present.
Dockery,
Present.
Gooding,
Present.
Yossi,
Present.
Peterson,
Present.
Seibel,
Present.
Looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. So moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion by Blackwell, second by Campbell to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it. Number 3, items for discussion. 3A, capital improvement. That'll include you now.
Sure. So the 2 items for discussion are items that I think everybody at this point is pretty aware of. We've got the financial report for the last 5 fiscal years for the community center, showing total revenues and expenses. So we can talk through that, answer any questions you have about any of those line items or those numbers. But we also have a list of capital improvement projects that need to be done out here at the community center. You'll see a couple of quotes in your packet. There are 2 for the 2 different bathrooms here at the community center. That would be a remodel of each bathroom, including getting everything up to the ADA standards, which is required for any remodel that would be done. There's also the LED lighting upgrade proposal, which I think both boards have already seen and gone through. That was approved by both boards, but we have not moved forward with any of that project yet with the vendor. There are a couple other items, projects that need to be done at the community center. They do need resurfacing on the rink floor. There's some ceiling tiles that need to be replaced. There's some building fascia missing on the west side of the outside of the building. The carpet along the rink wall, some of that has tears in it that needs to be replaced. And there's, in some of the entryways to the skating rink, there's some exposed metal. I know there's a few smaller items out there that need attention, but this would be a majority of the larger list of capital improvement projects that need to be funded and completed out here at the community center.
The carpet on the knee wall, didn't we have a problem when that was installed and they had to come back and do it?
Yes.
Correct.
Is that
And it's just
still,
wear and tear, basically, is what's
or I'll
happening.
lose track of time, I didn't know if that was
Yeah.
under warranty or,
Not that I'm aware of, no.
because we had such an issue of it when they first installed it.
Some of this has been caused with unraveling, and then kids will grab a strand and skate with it.
Give the skate patrol paddles.
Right.
And the floor surface, didn't we just have that done a couple years ago? That
Yes.
crew out of Texas came up?
2021, I believe, for 36 grand.
Just wearing.
What's the usual routine on that? Every 5 years, 4 years, or is this normal?
I think it's been going every 5 years. I can pull the records to find out for sure, yeah. We do have Gage here as well. He's the assistant manager out here, so he may be able to answer some of those questions as far as the routine maintenance as well.
Was there a warranty with that when we had that applied?
The ring floor, has it been done since then? I know our crew did it once.
That was the last time we did.
That was the last one, yeah. Okay.
So 2021-ish?
Roller derby must be hard on it.
I think it's the events as well. The events stuff on the floor. Able to chairs get moved on it a lot. So there's a lot of wear and tear on it.
Is there any type of special polymer that can be put on the floor which will make the concrete last longer?
I believe we've been looking into it. I think Paul has an idea as well.
I think it'd be kind of a budget from a company called Surf Prep to just grind the floor, polish it, and then it's done forever. But that's around the $50,000 range. But then it's, you don't ever have to resurface it. So.
long run, that'd probably be cheaper.
Yeah,
Correct.
Oh, yeah, sure.
because it's 36,000.
The last time it was done professionally was a 36 grand.
Okay,
Yeah.
So figure it's gonna be north of 40, probably at least this time, if not closer to that 50,000 mark.
just like,
Yeah.
hey, this is a great community, the Quad Cities. You have people from Illinois come out here for skating events and other activities. It'd be nice to see what we can do to keep the longevity. 50,000 to be warranted, if it's, but if it's a one-time deal.
Yeah, the rep for the contractor, he actually lives in Longwood. They're based out of central Wisconsin, but yeah, they do industrial coatings and things like that. And that was actually to grind, polish the floor, and then to put a sealer so if they had events, it couldn't stain, that kind of thing.
It's nice.
No reapplication of sealer every so many years.
So, no, it's that penetrating, what they call that. Drawing a blank. I think some of the events probably do tear the rink up though, with heels and moving tables and that kind of thing. So I think he's right on that.
So just for perspective, the three quotes that are in your packet to do the 2 bathrooms, to get that remodel done, and the LED project, we're looking at $195,000 worth of capital improvement projects that need funding. And I don't believe we have funding set aside for any of the additional projects. They are considerably smaller, with the rink resurfacing probably being the largest out of those at probably around 50,000. There are some SCRA and RDA grants out there that could be applied for to do funding for some of these projects. Typically on an annual basis, I think the most that we've seen, and they have funded several city projects, but you look at about 40 to 50,000 per round. I was informed that you can do a grant for a multi-year grant for a larger amount. You just have to agree that you won't apply for any additional funding until that larger project is complete. So essentially funding through multiple rounds of their grant funding cycle.
Well, nobody says all these requests have to be done in 1 year.
Correct.
And the restrooms, we've asked multiple times, or looked at it multiple times, but it is a capital expense. But we're currently ADA compliant, correct? We do have a handicap accessible restroom, so we're fine.
No.
No, okay, that's what I needed.
Yeah, so they're not currently, which means under the state federal law for the ADA, we can't do any remodeling at all, even small things in those bathrooms. If any remodeling is done, it needs to be completely done, upgrading everything to those ADA regulated standards.
So we don't have one unit that is, one stall that's ADA compliant?
Yeah, I thought. the
I'm getting
unisex
confused,
count-
because I thought we had a handicap accessible. which
We
is
may
ADA
have one
compliant.
handicap stall, but we would have to have all of the ADA regulated sinks. And I believe the standards have changed a little bit from when the bathrooms were first built. And so we would need to redo even the stalls that are currently in there to meet the current ADA standards.
No, you're right. If you do modify it, you do have to bring that, but I think that unisex bathroom that's here is actually ADA compliant.
Okay.
So you do have an ADA accessible bathroom. It's not like you have no accessibility, so.
Yeah,
Right, that was my question.
gotcha. Okay.
The only thing that I think this building really needs right now is that fascia that's gone, because they've had issues like birds can get in here, and I mean, there's a section just completely missing on the west side, but I mean, we could get a few estimates on that, but that's minimal. I mean, you're probably $4,000 to $5,000 if I had to throw a dart.
Mayor, is there a chance we use microphones around here?
I encourage everybody to.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Just push the buttons up on them, they'll make them live.
Do we repeat that?
Barely.
What do we gotta do?
Just slide the lever up.
There you go.
So there's a missing section of fascia on the west side. That's what really the building needs right away, to keep any pests and birds and that kind of thing out of the building.
I think we all sat in on those 2x2 meetings, whatever, with the council and the community center board a month or so ago. And we looked at the financials. And at least the group that I sat in had some real concerns about the financials and the amount of money that the city has propped up the community center with general fund and then interest and then the account of the miscellaneous revenue and not being able to track that. And that's a pretty substantial number the city has contributed to the community center. And I'm guessing if we look at this financial report that you gave us, Nevada, so that they would have lost $70,000 roughly if we would not have done that. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's a significant number that I think that we need to think about, especially in light of all these capital improvements that are on the board too. I think we need to have a good discussion about that. And I think at some point in time, we need to get input from other than us, maybe the community. I remember when the community center was bought, and I remember all the excitement in the community when the city did it, and it was a big deal. And, it was awesome, and people were really excited. And the community center board would know more than me now, but in my conversations, I don't see that same excitement for the community center as I did 20 and 25 years ago. And so I just think it's a discussion that we have to have and talk about some of these things.
Scott, I don't disagree with you, that we need to look at, the actual finances of the community center and versus the cost benefit needs to be done on it. What it adds to the community, whether we're after amenities, quality of life, whatever we're after. However, like the flashing on the west side of the building that was mentioned, I think that needs to be done because it protects one of our assets owned by the city. So there's a line that we're going to have to walk through and navigate through, but we do have to protect the integrity of the asset regardless of what we do long term.
I don't disagree, Marty.
Thank you, Scott.
Obviously, all of our committee of the whole meetings are here now, and all of our city hall meetings are here. So we know that there's a lack of space for us to accommodate citizens and guests down there. I would like for us to keep open mind as we look at this and the amenities that it does bring, events, family events, and weddings, skating events that I believe the schools still utilize. My daughters are not in grade school anymore, but I do recall the fond memories of that time. So I think we need to keep open mind with what we're using and why we're here. And we also know that we do need a city hall, we do need a police station. Maybe there's opportunity with our collective minds and thoughts that as we move forward with finances and we're looking at it from a fiscal standpoint, that it could be a combination of 2 or 3, some add-ons possibly, possible TIF for this project. So let's not, let's think big and not small as we move forward, and let's ensure that we keep the dream that we have.
Well, I think this evening, the main part of this was to show the financial situation, but there are some capital improvement things that need to be done. Like Brian mentioned, what Paul said about the fascia, we can't let the elements or the critters into the building. That's bad for the building's overall condition. We don't want any animals getting into the building. And I believe, Jeff, you had explained about this LED conversion. There's quite an annual savings of like over $9,500 just in the first year of it. You said, and regardless of which direction we go, I think committed to events for about another 9 months regardless. So I think, I mean, if we can save 9,500 in a year, we're gonna probably save about $7,000 just through the events that are scheduled right now. So one thing I would like everybody to look at is, we already proved it, but we didn't act on it. I think the LED lighting would be a smart thing because of savings alone, and look at that fascia to start with.
And that has been approved, so that's something that we could get going with a phone call. It is about a 1-year payback, so, you know, if they did it tomorrow, you know, December 2nd of next year, we have our money back on that.
But you're also adding value to the structure, you know, beyond the payback figure.
Yep.
Community board can speak too. So I see what you guys are saying, I agree with you. This is an asset, we've got to maintain the quality of it. But I really think it's important that we need to look at the numbers and figure out why or what we can do to change those numbers. Obviously, operating in the red and increasing that number is not where we want to be. I understand it's an amenity for the community, but we do need to look at it as a business of sorts, and that means if we're in the red, we need to figure out how do we come out of the red. Does that mean we're not charging enough for drinks, for parties? What's that party that we had problems with out here?
Kitson, yes.
Yeah, so when we have those, let's not push them away, but let's increase the price. Let's increase the deposit, let's monitor them, and if there's problems, it doesn't come out of the city's pocket, it comes out of the people that have the parties' pockets. And if we increase the price to where they don't want to have the parties here, then let them go somewhere else. But at the end of the day, this should be treated like a business, and if that means the cost of any of those items has to go up, then that's what has to happen. If we don't treat it like that, we're just going to keep throwing money into it and throwing money into it. So this is a great amenity for the city, but it should not bleed us dry. So we need to look at the numbers and figure out how do we tighten those numbers up? How do we make it work? What are we missing on systems or processes that we can change to make it not only, even if it's a break even would be fine. You know, we don't need to make money off of it, but we need to cover our costs. We need to have money set aside so that when we need these improvements, it's somewhat self-sustaining. And that doesn't mean that the city can't put in money when it needs to here and there, but it can't be, the city has to put money into it to make it survive year after year after year is the way I look at it. So I think we need to look at these numbers, break it down and dig in.
I also think it would be good information for us to have. I mean, Adrian made a comment at the beginning that it's a great thing for the Illinois Quad Cities. It brings a lot of people over here. I think we need to figure out if there's a way, how many Eldridge residents really utilize this? I mean, how many Eldridge residents are using this for receptions and whatnot? And even the skating parties. I think it's important to know that. Because if it's not really Eldridge or maybe North Scott, I'm not certain that the taxpayers of Eldridge need to make this whole. You know, they don't need to come up and make this an even proposition. So I think that's good information for us to have before we do anything. Because if it's truly just people from the Quad Cities that are using this, or it's a majority of them, then I think it's a little different decision to make. I mean, I agree, it has been a good amenity for the city. I'm just not totally convinced that it still has that same lofty status right now.
Could I backtrack? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Could I backtrack to the lighting issue? Now, yes, we see the savings in there, but that doesn't include what I would call the disco lights in the skating floor. Isn't that correct? So we wouldn't save any money on those, but we'd save overall with all the light fixtures, with the exception of those in the skating floor.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I say something? I thought they said that the disco ball lights were gonna be exchanged as well with,
I believe the star lighting,
The star
like all those clear ones, I think were included in that quote, Gage. I think you're correct. Yep.
that would be a part of
Yeah, and there was approximately 500 of those or something, wasn't there?
309.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Wasn't the majority of the savings from the parking lot lights?
Yeah,
Yeah,
a big part of it was, yeah.
Scott, to your point, I understand why you feel that way, but I also look at Eldridge a different way. Again, not if we have to keep feeding it to make it stay open, but I also look at it as if this is an amenity that brings people from out of town. That's making Eldridge more of a destination place, and that's gonna bring people that are gonna eat at the local restaurants, they're gonna stop at the local gas stations. So I see your side of it, but I also see a different side of it if it's run properly. But again, the prices have to match what's needed to make it profitable.
I think we do need to look at the expenses, and we need to look at the revenues, see if we can balance those. I think as a city, that includes council and community center board, we need to probably come up with a date. I don't care if it's 18 months, 2 years, come up with a date to see if we can make some changes to get it net neutral on the revenues. And, along with that, some of the ideas, Scott, if we can determine who's coming, benefits. I don't think any of us here today sitting here can say it's because of this reason. I think it's a combination of reasons. Concern I have is this is the warming center. The whole town loses power. This is where people come. That's another option that has value to me as a council member. But I think, and we did something similar with the fitness center when we had some of these discussions, because we were subsidizing that anywhere from 35 to 50,000 annually. And then the Y came along, so it was a no-brainer at that point. But I do think we need to come up with a time frame. Let's set a goal, see if we can get it balanced. Whatever that time period's gonna be, the shorter it is, the harder it's gonna be. But let's come up with a time period to see if we can get it net neutral on the expenses and revenue.
Dan?
In the last 2 years, we've had 2 new event centers that are less than 4 blocks away from here. And that had to hurt us. It really did. I've been to weddings here. I've been to graduation parties here. I've been to a lot of parties here, actually, in this room where we're sitting now. But in the same sense, we have to provide guidance, and we have to listen to what the citizens say, what they want to use their tax money for. I'm fine with the LED lighting. I think it's going to add value to the building no matter what we do with it. Fascia is a no-brainer. We have to take care of the building so we don't lose any more assets in it. Working with I'm the liaison for the community center, and they run a very tight ship. And when we have our meetings, they're talking about everything, what they can do, what was spent. We want to make it better, but we don't have the funds to make it better. So the only thing that's going to fix that is sales. So, if we can, put some money into marketing and get a better group in here to really start bringing more to the bottom line to make it the net neutral, what you're looking for, I'd say that's our only option at this point.
Oh, Mark, you have.
Liz, can you hear me? Sorry.
What time frame would everybody want? Because with people scheduling weddings and stuff, they get planned way out. So I mean, what seems attainable, 18 months, a couple of years? Because it seems like your revenue is going to come from big events. They run a really good program with the skating and everything. They do skates for like homeschool kids on Fridays, and the turnout's really good. So they're kind of getting as much out of it as they can with that. But it's the big events that are going to bring in the revenue that's going to straighten this out. Which I totally agree. It needs to, it should be be an asset to the city. So, but I mean, I'm just asking you guys, what do you think is realistic?
What do you guys think is fair as a timeline? 18 months? 24 months?
I'm thinking 18 is probably a good number, or between that 18, 24. I mean, we're sitting on 9 months with some venues already. We need to build that up if we're gonna get to where we need to be.
Okay.
I'd say July 1, 2026, start of a new fiscal year, which is about 18 months.
Perfect.
I would agree with that.
Everybody think that's a good consensus? In the meantime, though, can we look at the past events on the bigger ones and see if there's a possibility to turn the screws here and there to bring up, like Ryan said, what we're charging per events for deposits? Maybe skate round needs to go up, not a lot, but you start thinking about how many people come through here, you add 25 cents or 50 cents to skate round, that adds up pretty fast, especially in a year's time. Look at all that stuff and start implementing it.
Absolutely.
Actually, okay, go ahead. Go ahead and go up to the microphone so we can hear you. There's a button on the top, you gotta move it towards you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So we are looking to increase the skate rental by $1, and we have already created a new concessions menu, increasing the sodas, offering refills, offering food baskets. We recently got a fryer that's increasing our concession prices, and I guess everything overall is starting to kind of go up.
We've looked into birthday party packages, changing those.
We did discuss creating 2 different contracts for the quinceañeras and the weddings to increase the deposits on the quinceañeras for sure. But we are looking into doing a lot of new changes. It's just taking a lot of time. We should have some stuff posted within 2 weeks. We look to increase the prices by then.
How are your rates compared to the other venues in town for like wedding receptions? I know you guys are lower, right?
We are actually pretty cheap for venues.
Do you think there's room for that to go up too?
Yes, we are looking to increase the deposit and the hall rental.
Thank you.
Also, if you look at the staffing and wages from 2020 until 2024, we went from the general, and I'm just talking general numbers, in 2020, around $100,000 for total wages. 2024, we're almost $200,000. So in 4 years, it's doubled. The other thing is the police, charging the police, which that's a whole other question, but that's something the community center wasn't charged for in 2020. But in 2024, the expense is over $10,000. So there's $110,000 additional cost, which I think 2020 was COVID year, so I can extend some of the wages being down, but if you look at 2021, there's still a substantial increase in the last couple of years. I mean, is that a matter of having, and I don't know the staffing level here for events, do they have 5 people here or 10 people here when they need 5? I mean, all that needs to be looked at. Because that 100,000 is 30 grand more than what we subsidize them to make them whole.
She has the answers.
So we did increase the pay rate for the staff. We are looking to kind of cut back on the amount of people that we're scheduling. And going forward, we were having somebody come in and cover like the roller derby practice and the cutas that was going on. Going forward, the managers will be covering that. So that will come out of the salary that's already set aside. And we've been sending staff home more often now instead of putting them to work when we do get slow. So we are joining in and cleaning the skates, the managers are, and cleaning the building instead of having employees do it.
I will point out though too, that in fiscal year 20 and 21 compared to 22, 23 and 24, both the revenues and expenditures are somewhat matching with the expenses. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense. They're, you know, nearly half for 2020 versus 2024. So.
And you're at $12 an hour right now for
For like regular skating and concessions, yes. For crew setup, it's $15 an hour.
Yeah, and I believe McDonald's is $15 an hour, right? Is that correct?
Yes, and we don't have another crew set up until, I think, February.
They don't get a roller skate.
Right, and so, you know, I mean, just, you gotta be competitive, you know?
They get french fries.
I mean, you're just, when they can go down the street and make 15
We
in
were
12 years.
struggling to kind of get staff
Yeah.
here due to the pay rate that we were offering, so we did go with increasing it.
Well, don't misunderstand my point.
No,
My
no.
point is not what we're paying people,
Yeah,
how many hours there's working. I'm just saying we need to look into all that to see if we can get it close to being net neutral.
yeah.
That's
Yes,
all.
and we are looking into doing that.
It sounds like you guys have a lot of good ideas as far as what you can do to control your costs better. So I applaud you guys for that.
Thank you.
We did get like new stuff put in as well, so we were having a lot of staff trying to get them to understand how to use the deep fryer, the ovens, the new foods that we were cooking. So we did keep way more staff than necessary. And we weren't sending them home like Lexi said at first because they needed the money. We were trying to work with them and have them do other stuff around the building. But as they are trained now, they understand what is needed, and going forward, we limited our staff for certain skates. On Fridays, we kind of keep the same 6 Fridays and Sundays because those are our busiest. And with school skates and stuff, we cut our staff down, and as we aren't as busy, we do send them home, like she said as well. So we're working on the staffing as well right now. And at first, we did only have 15-year-olds, and we needed the 16-year-olds, so that's why our staffing was so high, because we had to have the 16-year-olds here to run the appliances.
Another little simple question, just throwing stuff against the wall here out of the box. Do you have any idea what the expense is for the community center when council holds their meetings here? Do you have a staff member here, or is it management?
I usually have Jeff lock up.
So nobody's
So
really
nobody.
here. Jeff unlocks the building, Jeff locks the building for your guys' meetings.
Make sure.
Wrong answer. If you would have said it's $75 a night, council should reimburse you for
We
that
need a
expense.
$100.
Do you want me to charge her my hourly rate? Dave?
Yes, sir.
Then lights and.
Just as a side note, sorry, for the financials, Lexi and Gage have been working really hard with Martha and I to going through their budget and renaming some of these fund lines so we can get a better picture of what the expenses and revenues really are. You won't be able to see that right away. That'll take some time to reflect what we're trying to do. But it will help to get a better picture of the real revenues and expenditures. Particularly for things like the police officer pay where they weren't showing an expense in fiscal 20 and fiscal 21. That's because they were blended into other lines or were being paid cash from those events. But the event contracts are paying for those officers, and then this is just expensing it out specific to those security wages. So we're showing a much clearer picture of what's coming in from the events to cover this cost. And we have a very specific line to show that expense coming back out. So that's not something that's being funded by anybody other than the people that are renting for the events. So there's a lot of that going on in these financials too that will eventually give us a better picture. And that's part of the problem too.
How is the staffing for the wedding receptions and parties? I assume you have a different pool of people. Do you have problems finding those people?
Yes, it's hard because a lot of them are 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds, so their setup and teardowns are on Fridays and on Saturdays. It's hard to get the 16-year-olds to want to come in at midnight, so it is tough to keep the staff here because they do set up and tear down until about 2, 3 in the morning. We do have bartenders and we do have somebody at the concession stand with the manager, so there is 4 people total here throughout the whole session. We do have the concession stand worker come in later throughout the night when it gets more busy, The bartenders and a manager that is running the event are usually here for about 8 to 9 hours, if not 12. And then the crew staff doesn't come in until midnight, and they're here until anywhere between 2 to 3 in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
And we book anywhere between, or we schedule, sorry, anywhere between 3 to 5 crew members, but it does still take them just as much time to clean up and everything depending on the event.
You know why the money that got transferred in has dropped from fiscal year 22 to from 65,000 to 30,000 in the past 2 years? It goes from 0 to 50 to 65 to 30 to 30.
Then you have to put the investment interest in there too, right?
Yeah,
So you're at 44 instead of 65 and really.
I'm not even looking at the investment interest, I'm just looking at the transfer in.
Transfer in, yeah.
Right.
But it's went from 0 to 50,000 to 65,000, now it's back down to 30.
That miscellaneous on the bottom.
So I wasn't here for those years, but I can give two pretty good guesses. I think one would be that there were specific asks for capital improvement projects that the council agreed to fund those years. My other ventured guess would be that that was what the general fund or the motel tax that usually is transferred over from the general fund had available in order to balance the general fund budget. And so there may not have been as much available extra revenue in the general fund the last few years. So it could be a combination of those things, and maybe someone from the council will have a better idea of what that was. Were you asking about the bottom, the category 9 miscellaneous?
Yeah.
So that is a revenue that we're currently working on. It is something that needs to be classified differently. It's used for tip wages at events. So it's going into a revenue line, but we aren't showing an expense line for it. So it's not depicting a true revenue for the community center, because that money is coming back out, but we're not seeing it in these financials. So that's where subtracting that amount came in. We are working on getting an expense line for that. It'll go through wages as part of our ADP, our time and attendance software. We'll be entering the tips into that and expensing them out through the payroll. So we'll be able to get that line cleared up as well.
So the bottom line is, there's a lot of things we need to look at. You know?
Yeah.
And I think by doing some of the steps, I think we'll have all the pieces of the puzzle to see the picture by July 1 of 2026. Short-term needs, we discussed the lights and flashing on the west side of the building. Those need to be done.
So for clarity, that July 1st, 2026, is that when we'll revisit the numbers? And at that point, I assume we're going to continue booking events through that and then look at the numbers then and make a determination what we're doing next?
I would say at this time, until we get a little better picture, only book events through June 30th of 2026. You know, a year from now, we might have a better feel where we can revisit it and see which way the trend is leaning.
If that's the case and they're booking events out 9 months in advance, then we need to look at having another get-together at least a year from now, if not 10 months from now, and look at the numbers. And if we're going the right direction, then we keep moving forward. But we should see some progress, but I don't think in 9 to 11 months we're going to see all the progress that's needed.
No, I don't think we have to see 100% progress. I just think a year from now, revisit it. That's the time we're going to be going through our budgetary process, and we should have a little better picture than we do today. There's a lot of things that Ada said she's trying to clean up to account for. And staff is looking at some changes. You know, let's do that for a year, but under the pretense that we'll meet again in a year, but worst case scenario, you know, by July 1, 2026, or June 30th, 2026, we'll make a decision on long term. But a year from now, we have to determine if we're going to book out past that. I should say, from the community center board, does that sound reasonable, or?
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
I do have a question. So we will start taking 2026 bookings at the beginning of the year. So do you want us to only offer those bookings until June 30th? Is that what you're stating?
At this time.
At this time, for now, okay.
Gage and Lexi, does that sound reasonable to you guys?
With the changes you talked about that you've already started to implement, but you just haven't had time and your other ideas, do you think having the 18 months to come back and look at this, that we should wait a whole year, or should we divide that by those 18 months by 3 and have another meeting every 6 months to see your progress on what you're doing, and possibly anybody in this whole board, this combination board, this body, put any ideas in there instead of pushing it that far out to meet, instead of waiting a year to meet in 6 months, then at a year, and then it'll be the 18 months will be after that.
As a board member, I appreciate the extra heads thinking.
Right.
I think every 6 months would be great, so then we can see progress and get any ideas from anybody from the city.
Right.
Stuff like that.
That gives you a smaller window to make changes in the bigger picture instead of waiting so far out. Is that agreeable, everybody?
Yes, for sure.
Every 6 months?
Yeah.
That way we keep a closer tie on with finances, and you won't be limited by only stopping potentially at June the 30th of 2026 if we're heading in the right direction. I would hate to lose revenue, make a family or a company inconvenience by saying, no, we can't look past that.
Does anybody else have anything else to add? Within our consensus here is to go forward with the LED lighting, because the building is asset of the cities, and to get some estimates for the fascia flashing to get that repaired, to bring that back as soon as possible. Does that sound good? And then to revisit this as a group, as a whole body, every 6 months, and give them a chance to implement their changes. Fair enough? Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, then I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dockery, second by Collins. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Ayes have it. We are adjourned at 6:45. Thanks, everybody.